then it was very simple, very easy to debunk the myth of the 3 million Bengalis having been killed by Pakistan army and 200,000 women having been raped. If I take 3 million Bengalis killed and over a period of time which was started basically from the start of the Operation Searchlight, which started on March the 26th, which ended on December 16, 1971 with the surrender documents. These are 262 days. 3 million divided by 262 gives you a figure of 11,480. That means you have to get hold of 11,500 plus Bengalis, bring them together, kill them, bury them, and do this again and keep doing it day after day after day for 262 days. And you had only 34,000 people to do this, and these 34,000 combatant soldiers were all on the borders, which are about 1,500 kilometer long border, facing 15 division Indian Army. Now these 34,000, mind you, were 3 divisions. So 3 division Pakistan Army is facing 15 division Indian Army outside on the borders, plus 150,000 plus Mukti Bahini inside, including 50,000 Indian soldiers. So how could this be possible? And of course, then at night, they had to rape women as well, 200,000 women. It is arithmetic, it is not possible. In 1968, Indira Gandhi then decided to establish RA, Research and Analysis Wing of the Indian intelligence, with the single objective of breaking up Pakistan. And whatever money was needed by them was given to them. And these are not my words. These are words of the director, P. Raman, the first director of RA. So we all did our best to look down upon them. And we never accepted that what they were saying was correct. The Bengalis became very sure of themselves that no, West Pakistani politicians and the military junta will not hand over power to us. Although they had 162 seats out of they had an overwhelming majority in the National Assembly, and Sheikh Mujibur Rahman should have become the Prime Minister. But Bhutto's was something like 84 seats, 84 versus 162. But the man was not willing to become the leader of the opposition. Under all circumstances, he wanted to get rid of East Pakistan. And there is a reason for that. As long as East Pakistan would have remained a part of Pakistan, Bengalis were in majority, the Punjabis, the Pathans knew that they could never form the government. It would always be a Bengali federal government. So they wanted to get rid of this. And so they all ganged up. That's the reason. The simplest thing that comes to mind was a continuous allegation by Pakistan and a propaganda against Pakistan by India and Bangladesh that 93,000 soldiers surrendered. That hit me first. How can a lieutenant general who has only 45,000 men under him, out of which 11,000 are supporting troop, how could he have 93,000 soldiers? The maximum combatant soldiers would be 34,000. Who are the rest? They were members of the civil armed forces, police, civilian officers, their wives and children, who were all handed over to India so that the Mukti Bahini would not kill them. I started from there. And when I found out that this is a propaganda, and here is the army of Pakistan, the DGISPR, nobody is responding to this, I then started to see, well, somebody has to do this. And I have never waited in my life for anybody else to do anything. I decided on something and just started. It was very simple, very easy to debunk the myth of the 3 million Bengalis having been killed by Pakistan army and 200,000 women having been raped. If I take 3 million Bengalis killed and over a period of time which was started basically from the start of the Operation Searchlight, which started on March the 26th, which ended on December 16, 1971 with the surrender documents. These are 262 days. 3 million divided by 262 gives you a figure of 11,480. That means you have to get hold of 11,500 plus Bengalis, bring them together, kill them, bury them, and do this again, and keep doing it day after day after day for 262 days. And you had only 34,000 people to do this, and these 34,000 combatant soldiers were all on the borders, which are about 1,500 kilometer long border, facing 15 division Indian Army. Now these 34,000, mind you, were 3 divisions. So 3 division Pakistan Army is facing 15 division Indian Army outside on the borders, plus 150,000 plus Mukti Bahini inside, including 50,000 Indian soldiers. So how could this be possible? And of course, then at night, they had to rape women as well, 200,000 women. It is arithmetic, it is not possible. Having done and debunked this, then I went and did research on it. We found, yes, the myth of 3 million had been started, and it had been propagated a great deal, and that the myth of the 200,000 women also was wrong, which I was able to prove using documents and the commission which had been established by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman himself on January 26, 1972. I think the first one was in March 1948, when the father of the nation, Mr. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, announced that Urdu would be the national language of Pakistan. Bengali had been a much older language than Urdu, and Bengalis were in majority also, and they were very unhappy, and the Bengali language movement immediately started. But then over a period of time, which was put down very horrendously by the government, and a number of students were killed, and a lot of baton charge and beating ups had taken place. It was sometime in 1956, 8 years later, that the government of Pakistan also agreed that, well, Bengali would also be the national language of Pakistan. This could have easily happened in 1948 or 49. Had that happened that way, India would not have been able to take advantage of this 8 years of mayhem of the Bengali language movement, which India took full advantage. And in 1958, the Agartala conspiracy started, and according to that conspiracy and the plan, East Pakistan was to be separated in 1962, which did not happen because of the Indo-China war. And then in 1965, it was again stopped because of the Indo-Pakistan war. In 1968, Indira Gandhi then decided to establish RA, Research and Analysis Wing of the Indian intelligence, with the single objective of breaking up Pakistan. And whatever money was needed by them was given to them. And these are not my words, these are words of the director, P. Raman, the first director of RA. He has written a very comprehensive book which describes in detail as to how RA had organized the dismemberment of the country. So these are, in my opinion, the most critical events. There are many more, but these are the most important. The Ganga hijacking, I think, is the start of the Indian direct interference in this war of 1971. Ganga was hijacked. It was an old Fokker plane which had been decommissioned 6 years ago. It had its last flight, and a maiden flight after 6 years, which it did on January the 30th, 1971. It took off from Sri Lanka. It was hijacked, reportedly, and by two Kashmiri Mujahideen, and India told this to the whole world that these Kashmiri Mujahideen had hijacked this plane. The plane landed in Lahore. Mr. Bhutto was asked to negotiate. Mr. Bhutto, by the way, was a politician, had nothing to do with the government. And these two hijackers asked that they would like to negotiate with Mr. Bhutto. So they negotiated with Mr. Bhutto. As a result of that negotiation, all the passengers were released, and these hijackers also came out and then blew up the plane. These two hijackers were Ashraf Qureshi and Hashim Qureshi. Both of them were later found out to be members of the Border Security Force of India. In a Fokker, there are 54 passengers that can sit. But in this plane, there were only 26, and they were all Indian military officers and their wives. India blamed this on Pakistan, and they stopped the overflights. As a result, now a flight from Karachi to Dhaka could not overfly India. It would normally take about 3 hours. It started going via Colombo, and the distance increased from 3 hours to more than 7.5 hours. And those days, Sri Lanka was in a very bad shape. We had to even send fuel from Pakistan for the plane to refuel in Colombo. So that's how they had made it difficult for Pakistan. So this is the starting point, in my opinion, of this direct intervention which India had started. No, I don't think so. We could have avoided that. But that military action was like any surgical operation that has happened in Karachi, it has happened at Swat, it has happened in Bonaire, it has happened in South and North Waziristan. It was something very similar, nothing more than that. And the Pakistan Army had been able to bring everything under control by June, July. In next 3-4 months, it had been brought under control. It was at this point in time that India couldn't tolerate this. They had unleashed the Mukti Bahini on Pakistan on the 7th of April 1971, and then sent in 50,000 Indian soldiers dressed in Pakistani uniform to create mayhem in the country. And that's what they did. And all of that started happening from end of July, August 1971 till December. So, in my opinion, along with the surgical operation or the Operation Searchlight, there should have been very serious political dialogues which were needed to bring the situation under control, which we never did. After the death of Liaquat Ali Khan, or Shahadat of Liaquat Ali Khan in 1951, Muslim League was divided into many groups, as it is even divided now. And there was no political party except Jamaat-e-Islami, which had always remained a marginal party. There was no political party which was present in both the wings. As a consequence, there was a serious political vacuum. So that added a lot of problem. In addition, let's move on. The bureaucracy. East Pakistan never had a East Bengali Chief Secretary, a Bengali Finance Secretary, a Bengali Planning Secretary, a Bengali Interior Secretary till 1971. They all came from West Pakistan. So there was a very serious vacuum at the level of the bureaucracy as well. In the case of the military, the Air Force and the Navy had started taking officers and men from 1948. But the army did so very reluctantly in 1962. So there was a bias not only in the civilian bureaucracy but also in the military bureaucracy. We were already looking down upon them. But above all of this was the Pakistani business community. The industrialists and the business community, more than 2,500 industrial units were established by West Pakistani businessmen in East Pakistan. 50 plus jute mills, sugar mills, garment factories, textile factories, light engineering units, all kinds of things. In all these businesses, the top management, the senior management, the middle management were all from West Pakistan. East Pakistanis are hired as laborer, or as they say, as class 4 servants. So we all did our best to look down upon them. And we never accepted that what they were saying was correct. So all of this put together has been, and India took full advantage of this. If I may say in a very simple way, yes, there were mistakes by the West Pakistanis, maybe 25%, another 25% by the Bengalis, but the full advantage of 50% was India, which was fueling all of this. was already funding all of this as well. No serious effort was made to understand the 6 points. No serious effort was made to understand that what East Pakistan was asking was for autonomy. That please give us the right to live our own life. Majority of the exports of Pakistan were coming at that time from jute, and they would land up in West Pakistan. The division of the public sector development program, I have already talked about the civil and military bureaucracy. I have already told you regarding the politicians being all from West Pakistan or majority from West Pakistan. They were not listening as to their requirements. They had an economic disparity, and that economic disparity, and they were being ill-treated. So we never made any serious effort. The political parties in West Pakistan, particularly People's Party and Mr. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, wanted to get rid of East Pakistan under any circumstances he could. He used his intelligence, he used his ability to argue, and many things that he said at that time, and not once, many times, that idhar hum udhar tum, जो यहाँ से वहाँ जाएगा मैं उसकी टांगें तोड़ दूंगा, ये उन्होंने एक दफ़ा नहीं बहुत दफ़ा कहा. और ये भुट्टो साहब ही थे जिन्होंने पाकिस्तान की नेशनल असेंबली की पहली मीटिंग, दूसरी मीटिंग, तीसरी मीटिंग, तीनों को पोस्टपोन करवाया याह्या खान से. एंड एज अ कॉन्सिक्वेंस द बंगालीज became very sure of themselves that no, West Pakistani politicians and the military junta will not hand over power to us. Although they had 162 seats out of they had an overwhelming majority in the National Assembly, and Sheikh Mujibur Rahman should have become the Prime Minister. But Bhutto's was something like 84 seats, 84 versus 162. But the man was not willing to become the leader of the opposition. Under all circumstances, he wanted to get rid of East Pakistan, and there is a reason for that. As long as East Pakistan would have remained a part of Pakistan, Bengalis were in majority, the Punjabis, the Pathans knew that they could never form the government. It would always be a Bengali federal government. So they wanted to get rid of this, and so they all ganged up. That's the reason. The Agartala conspiracy basically was started by India, and they wanted to take advantage of this mayhem which was already developing in East Pakistan because of these language riots, and then subsequently I told you about the lack of representation in the bureaucracy. Their DIGs, their IGs were also coming from West Pakistan. You can imagine. I mean, and these people knew nothing about East Pakistan, they knew nothing about the Bengali, they knew nothing about their culture. They were treating them like their subjects. So everybody was doing their best to make them, demean them, to disrespect them. So India took full advantage of that. It started off in Agartala, is a small town in Assam, very close to the eastern side of East Pakistan, a few kilometers away from the border, where they gathered together a number of times. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman had many meetings with the Intelligence Bureau of India and other agencies, and they wanted to take full advantage of the situation. In 1962, because the Sino-India War, it stopped then in 1965. So this actually conspiracy was found out by Pakistan in 1967 because an Indian author wrote a book, The Agartala Doctrine, in which he discussed, and there are many other books that had also come in, which talked in detail about the security threats that India felt because of East Pakistan and the Pakistan army being present over there, and the NIFA states of India, etc. So they were aware of this thing, and in order to resolve their eastern frontier security issues, they wanted to separate East Pakistan from a security point of view. But there were other advantages as well, that you at least cut Pakistan into half, cut Pakistan into size. So this was discovered in 1967, eventually a case was filed, and this case did continue for 2 years, and in 1969 it had to be withdrawn by the Pakistan government at immense pressure which had been created by Mr. Bhutto and a few other politicians, and Mr. Mujibur Rahman and his 35 accomplices were let go. This is the same kind of things that the government of Pakistan is superb at doing, whether it is the TLP or any other thing which you are also seeing even now. So, as I've always said, and as Asghar Khan wrote this book, we have learnt nothing from history. So we have learnt nothing from history, and it continues in that manner even now. This whole myth started off as a result of a newspaper article by the name of Enemy Occupation, which was printed in Pravda. Pravda was the major newspaper of erstwhile Soviet Union. It was in December, I think 21, that they wrote this piece, The Enemy Occupation, in which Pravda said that we estimate that about 3 million people were killed in 1971, not Bengalis. 3 million people were killed in East Pakistan in 1971. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was released by the government of Pakistan on 8th of January. He arrived in Dhaka on the 10th of January. And as he came down the plane, he asked Mr. Tajuddin, who was then the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Tajuddin, how many people died? Because Mr. Mujibur Rahman was in Pakistan during all this period of time. He was captured on March 25 and 26 night, and he was brought to West Pakistan, and he stayed here. He had no TV, no radio, no newspapers ever given to him at all. So he asked Tajuddin, how many people died in East Pakistan in 1971? Tajuddin replied, I don't know, but I think about 3 lakhs. Mr. Sirajur Rahman, who was the head of BBC Bangla in Dhaka at that time, reported this in a BBC broadcast that same evening on January 10, 1972. Mujibur Rahman was interviewed on 18th of January 1972 by Mr. David Frost, who was a very well-known journalist from BBC, and he asked the President Mujibur Rahman at that time, in that interview, sir, what do you think, how many people died in East Pakistan in last year in 1971? Mujibur Rahman looked left or right. He could not make up his mind. The Pravda reporter was sitting there who said, sir, 3 million. And Mujibur Rahman then said 3 million. And David Frost then reported this that evening on the BBC on January 18, 1972. That is how this myth started. From the very next day, a bickering started between Tajuddin and Mujibur Rahman. Tajuddin said, I told you 3 lakhs. How can you make it 3 million? 3 lakhs and 3 million are very different. And they kept on bickering with each other till the time to stop this bickering. Mujibur Rahman appointed a commission on January 26, 1972 with 12 people. Members coming from the Army, Border Security Force, Rangers, Police and Civil Administration, and gave them a task which was how many people died and how many women were raped. This they let me know. Till August 10, 1972, they could not find a single mass grave. And the commission was very, very concerned. So they gave an advertisement in the newspaper. Anybody who can tell us as to how many people have died, we'll give 1,000 taka. For every victim whose details were given to this commission, they gave 1,000 taka. And then on a few days later, they gave another advertisement that anybody who knows anybody or who can give us any information about any victim of rape, we will give 3,000 taka. Now 3,000 taka at that time was a lot of money. I was studying in BCom Part 1 at that time, and I had bought a Honda 175 for 3,000 rupees. So you can imagine. So 3,000 taka was given. The total number of complaints they got was 2,680. The total number of victims of killing they had got was 38,000. So they rounded that off to 50,000 killed and 2,680 rounded off to 25,000 women raped. And when they presented this to Mujibur Rahman on the 20th of August. He was blooming mad. He threw the report back at the commission and said, I asked you to prove 3 million. If not 3 million, you could have done 300,000. What is this bloody figure of 50,000? And I had asked you to prove 200,000. You would have done 100,000, maybe 50,000. What is this figure? So Mujibur Rahman never referred to this report ever till he died or killed in 1975. And from then on, this report was never talked about, and this figure of 3 million and 200,000 women raped was never talked about till Sheikh Hasina Wajid's government came in 2009, 2008. 2009-10 she started off. We could have understood, we could have appreciated the 6 points program. We should have handed over the government to Mujibur Rahman. We should have allowed him to handle the situation, and I think he's a very competent person and he could have done this in a much better way. But unfortunately, we did not do that. The federal government of Pakistan is still very Punjab centric, and it is this hegemonic attitude of Punjab which already did damage to Pakistan earlier, and this is what they are doing even now. I have no hesitation in saying this.